Eyewitness News will remain on the air through the night with continuing earthquake coverage. We'll have the latest updates on quake damage, which freeways and other roads are closed, including alternate routes. We'll also keep you informed on school and other major closings and the locations of shelters for earthquake victims. So please stay tuned to Channel 7 as we continue our coverage. It is nighttime in a shaken Los Angeles basin where a deadly pre-dawn earthquake has given way to major aftershocks. The death toll 24 at this hour, a rising toll in casualties and damage. So far that toll, now we're saying it has gone up, 27 dead, hundreds hurt, tens of millions in property damage. This was the eerie scene at rush hour tonight on the Santa Monica Freeway, where two massive cracks have split the road in both directions and shut it down. Crews will soon begin demolishing broken bridges. Freeways were especially hard hit by this morning's quake. An overpass at the intersection of the I-5 and 14 freeway fell apart, and an LAPD motorcycle officer was thrown to his death. The 6.6 quake has spawned hundreds of aftershocks, the three largest registering between 5 and 5.5 on the Richter scale, created a huge dust cloud. The quake was on a little-known fault near Northridge, not far from the epicenter of the destructive Sylmar quake of 1971. It collapsed several apartment houses and other structures in the North San Fernando Valley. This three-story complex in Northridge was reduced to 2 stories, and at least 14 people have died here. Not far away, a parking structure gave way to a Northridge mall, and a worker trapped under 8 feet of debris was finally rescued after 8 hours. Broken gas pipes triggered fires that destroyed dozens of homes in Granada Hills and Sylmar, and hillside houses in Sherman Oaks and Studio City were reduced to rubble. Water pipes were shattered in several communities. Tens of thousands of residents are still without electricity, water. Federal, state, and local officials all declared states of emergency. Moments ago, Mayor Richard Riordan imposed a citywide dusk to dawn curfew that is now in effect. Another update, the LAPD officer killed in the I-5 overpass collapse has been identified now as 46-year-old Clarence Dean, a veteran of the department's Valley Traffic Division.
Well, as we know, it's been just a horrifying day here in the Southland. We've had to deal with so many things as it began at 4:31 this morning. We heard you say just a few minutes ago, you were talking about the fact that the mayor has issued a curfew. The LAPD has declared a state of emergency. A curfew has been set between the hours of darkness. Now, water will be shut off in the following areas this afternoon. Tonight, Sylmar, Pacoima, Sunland, Tahunga, Sun Valley, Chatsworth, Reseda, Winnetka, Northridge, and Porter Ranch. The Metrolink resumes tomorrow. That is good news for folks who are living out in the Santa Clarita area who are they're trapped in their homes tonight because the 14 has been shut down as well as the 5. So the fact that they are able to get out of there is good news. We had 2 major aftershocks, 4:39 p.m., a 4.4 aftershock, 4:43 p.m., a 5.0 aftershock. And of course, the UTLA is advising teachers to stay home. I think that
schools will be closed in the Unified District
right.
tomorrow.
The important thing to remember, though, is to stay calm and for people to try to pull together and help one another. I know that in my neighborhood in Sherman Oaks, all of the neighbors got together today to try to help each other in any way that we could. Water distribution, of course, water a key issue today because of the lack of it. If you need water, try Sylmar High School, Kennedy High School, Granada Hills High School. And we don't know exactly when the water will resume in the valley. There's some talk it could go 2-3 days. I even heard one projection as long as a week. Some other key areas, too, we might want to look at there. Manual Arts High School, Hollywood High, Santa Clarita High School, and Glendale Armory for water distribution.
Lord Captain Ron is above a fire, a major fire. I do not know where it is. Ron, please bring us up to date. What's happening?
Okay, this is an apartment fire. In fact, there appears right now that there's several units involved. And where we are, this is Rinaldi on the south side, and it's right in the vicinity where Sepulveda dead ends right into Rinaldi. Now, if you're familiar with the St. Joseph's Hospital, then that's where it is. And as you can see, we've been watching this over at least 10 minutes here as we made our way across the valley because of the wind that we were hitting. But this fire has been going for a while, and as you can see from our pictures, I believe that it's going very strongly. We can see at least 2 units that are involved in this thing. The Air Boss Fire 6 is overseeing, and he is directing all the air traffic. We've got about 8 pieces of equipment down there that are attempting to fight this thing. Hopefully they do have water pressure. And just as a means to orient you, we're actually just southeast of the Van Norman Reservoir. This is where this set of apartments are.
Okay, Ron, thank you. We are hearing, of course, earlier from Mayor Reardon, a dawn to dusk curfew. We want to go to Linda Breakstone. We're going to keep an eye on this fire, of course. Linda, give us a summary, if you will, of what the mayor and the police chief and the other officials told the people of Los Angeles and Southern California just a little while ago.
Well, Paul, it was quite a comprehensive list of things to watch out for. One very important thing, do not use your barbecue to heat yourself in your home. It produces carbon monoxide, and that could kill you, Chief Donald Manning told us. Also, be careful of your fireplaces. They may look okay, but they well may not be. And he said, do not use your fireplace until that has been rechecked. Now, as for water, especially in the San Fernando Valley, even 24 hours after service of water is returned, Police Chief Willie Williams said it must be boiled. Now, as to electricity in the hardest hit areas, the Chief of Police said electricity may not be returned for 24 to 48 to 72 hours. And that comes, I know, as very grim news for all those people in the San Fernando Valley. Now, Mayor Reardon again urged people to stay calm and stick together. He said schools would be closed tomorrow. City workers would be asked to come in, but both the mayor and the police chief have asked all private businesses, if they possibly can, to stay closed, to conserve on water and electricity. They're asking those essential businesses, of course, to go on as they must, but to please try to conserve energy and try to stay closed, and also to keep the people off the streets. Of the 3 freeways that are broken down now, they said they are working on alternate routes. They have not got them all figured out yet for the 10, but they are working on them, and they will have those maps to us quickly. So when traffic resumes, there will be an orderly alternative set for all of that. They also said that in approaching 4 streets where the stoplights are out, to approach that as a 4-way street. That is, yield to the driver on your right. They said too many people in Los Angeles were not remembering that today, and the police chief again asked that we do this. The mayor said that our water supply, half of it is coming from the northern aqueducts, and he said we have just been really hard hit, harder hit than ever before. He apologizes for this. Of course, there's nothing he can do about it, but he says help is on the way. They are getting to work on all of the things as quickly as they possibly can. He also said that for the first time in the entire history of the entire city at one time was dark when all of this earthquake first occurred. Now, one other thing about the looting. The police chief said there had been some looting in the South Bureau, the Central Bureau, and the San Fernando Valley. He said some arrests, he didn't identify how many, but some arrests were made. He said, but the situation will not be tolerated that occurred here a year and a half ago during the Los Angeles riots. The police chief, again, making a very strong statement on that. This is the mayor, Police Chief Willie Williams having the first major address on this to warn the city as it approaches darkness. Again, this whole news conference was held to announce a curfew. We are now under curfew. Anybody out that's not an emergency service person will be arrested, the mayor said. I'm Linda Breakstone reporting from City Hall. Now back to you, Paul and Laura.
Good advice from the mayor.
Yes, thank you very much for bringing us up to date at City Hall. While Linda Breakstone has been speaking live from City Hall, there has been a picture behind her, a live picture of a fire burning out of control in Granada Hills. Captain Ron is up in the chopper, and he's going to bring us up to date. Ron, what can you tell us about it?
Ron, if you're there, come in, please. This is the fire that we told you about just a little while ago. It continues to burn. Granada Hills, in the hills itself. Ron, what has changed, if anything, at this point? It seems to be burning rather strongly still at this hour.
It is still burning quite strongly. I was just listening to the fire boss up here, that's Fire 6, and he has just called for 2 water-dropping helicopters. On the right side of the screen, there are eucalyptus trees, and what he's afraid is if this fire continues, it's going to ignite these eucalyptus trees, and then it's going to expose additional parts of this apartment complex to fire. And he's called for them twice, and he's waiting for their entry into this area right now. Hopefully they'll be able to come in, and with the amount of water that they can carry, 2 drops in there should make a big difference in this fire. But right now it's still burning completely out of control.
We heard Chief Manning a little while ago say don't use candles at night, don't use your chimney or fireplace, and it just got dark, and I assume that there's a possibility that someone may not have gotten that message. The chief saying there could be some gas that you can't smell, but it could erupt, could explode, could cause a fire. Or if you start a fire in the fireplace, your chimney may have been damaged and the sparks can get onto the roof. We don't know, but it is more than a coincidence, perhaps, that this fire has started just as the sun has gone down.
It has been a day of tremendous aftershocks, as well as the major quake that we had at 4:31 this morning. Two 5.5 aftershocks have followed, and they have been frightening, and nerves are jarred out there. We're going to live to Jeff Michael now at Caltech, who can bring us up to date on what's happening there. Jeff?
Maybe that we favor this
Dr. KABC, who's explaining the latest theory. Doctor, if you could, for Channel 7, we just came live to you. Re-theorize, if you will, why you think that the fault that caused this quake is now called the Oak Ridge Fault.
There have been an oil company geologist who's called us up and faxed us some information, and he's pointed out to us that in the oil fields just to the west of this area, there's a fault called the Santa Susana, which 3 million years ago began to override this structure. And this structure can be traced in the oil fields all the way out toward Ventura, all the way to the south end of the Ventura Basin, and all the way offshore into the Santa Barbara Basin, which is where the ocean is right now. So, so what he's suggesting is that this major structure, which we know is major to the west, may in fact continue over into this area and be what we were calling a few hours ago the Fru Fault.
Okay, so
Maybe the same thing.
What does that tell you about the intensity, or what does that tell you about the faults that caused the quake?
Well, it tells us that it may be a larger, more regional fault, and not just a very local, small fault. So it may continue for tens of kilometers all the way offshore.
Of being far greater than a 6.6.
Well, if this is the case, it would make it more like the Whittier Narrows earthquake, which occurred on a very small patch of a much bigger fault, and only that small part broke in Whittier Narrows earthquake. So, you know, that might be the case here as well.
Does the fact that this could have occurred on a larger fault mean anything for the future? Could it have displaced any tension to the San Andreas or to other fault lines?
That's a question we've been asking on the for the Whittier area ever since the earthquake occurred in '87. We've been asking, could the Whittier Narrows event actually be just a precursor to some event in the next 5 or 10 or 20 years that might break the fault system all the way through the downtown, all the way out to Santa Monica and Pacific Palisades? So far, Mother Nature hasn't answered the question for us, thank goodness. And we're still working on what the likely scenarios are for the future. So that's a weaselly way of saying we don't really know, but it may well be that this structure is bigger than we initially thought. It may be that it went all the way west. That's our favorite theory as of 6 o'clock, and we reserve the right to change that as we become more educated.
Gary, how big is that pad?
Let me just point out one thing here. The geology of the LA Basin is well known, but it's well known for the most part because of all the oil in the basin. Okay, it's well known for economic reasons. The oil companies have never been concerned about earthquake faults in the LA Basin. Until 1987, we never had a significant earthquake historically in the basin. So we're only in our 7th year or so trying to understand these guys. So you're seeing us changing our understanding as the day goes on. I'd never even been out here until today, until this morning. I've never been to this area of the city.
When you were out there, you noticed that, or you did not see any fissures, any ground break.
Right.
And what did that tell you once again?
That tells us that whatever fault this is that produced the earthquake, the crack didn't go all the way to the surface. Or if it did, it was a very, very small crack that we missed in the helicopter. So if we know the earthquake is big enough, it had to be a big enough source. There had to have been on the order of a meter or several feet of motion in this region. Why that didn't go all the way to the surface and break through and dislocate the surface one way or another, we don't know. But since it didn't, it may mean high stress concentrations in the shallow surface, and it may be the reason that Kate is seeing, and the rest of the Seismo Lab staff here is seeing these shallow locations.
Okay. Doctor, anybody who's grown up in California. You're listening to Dr. KABC, who is with Caltech. He's a Caltech earthquake geologist here. And he is basically telling all of us that they are trying to pinpoint where this fault occurred, and that it appears to have occurred on a larger fault line than they originally thought. I'm going to go ahead and toss it back to the studio to see if you have any questions before we leave here.
In case you didn't hear.
The only thing I think people might be interested in this hour is aftershocks and whether they're going to be as strong as some of the earlier ones. I did hear Kate Hutton say when you were interviewing her about an hour ago that the chance of a 5.0 is 1 in 10 at this point, and that was about an hour or so ago, so that I assume has to be a lot less or a little bit less. And the aftershocks are certainly rattling our nerves at the very least, but they're not causing any major damage to report of, and no injuries. We're still looking at a fire now in Granada Hills, apartment fire that Captain Ron is above and has been keeping up to date on. It appears that the fire is going just about as it was before, Ron. Maybe some of the smoke is obscuring the fire, but it is still going fairly well.
It sure is. In fact, we just heard the Fire 6 call for now additional helicopter. That would be 3 water-dropping helicopters that he has called for. Apparently, what he said on the air is that the fire equipment down there have an access problem. The fire is burning on the downhill side of this complex, and the fire equipment are not able to get water into it. Now, just a few minutes after he said that, I did see a couple of lines get over into that area, but as we watch this thing, the fire is still burning completely out of control, and they do have an access. And he still has those trees, those eucalyptus trees, that he's quite concerned about. Now, we've been out here a little bit, and I've been able to orient myself a little bit. Because of this power outage, you'll have to help me that it's a little bit hard to figure out where you are. And where we are, these complexes are the ones that are right next to the Odyssey restaurant up here. And these are the ones that we were looking at earlier today that had so much damage in them. And right now, several of these units are burning.
Okay, Ron.
Okay, thank you, Ron. We're going to continue to look at that live picture of that fire burning in Granada Hills. At the same time, we would like to speak with our colleague Todd Donahoe, who is on the telephone from Valencia. We're sorry to hear, Todd, that we understood you sustained quite a bit of damage in your home.
Yeah, we took a pretty big hit here, as well as a lot of people in Santa Clarita. I can tell you that we tonight feel like a town that's isolated because all the freeways out are for the most part closed. We can't go anywhere, and a lot of the roads are closed too because of bridges and overpasses and whatnot. But it's a familiar scene around Santa Clarita tonight. People with tents camped out in their front yards. No one's sleeping inside tonight because we're getting aftershock about every 2 or 3 minutes up here right now, and there's a lot of portable radios going right now and barbecues outside, and everybody's pulling together.
With that freeway collapse, Todd, at the 5 and the 14, a lot of people up in your area are going to have a little tough time getting south, aren't they?
Well, as far as I know, there's no way to get south now. I was just able to get a portable TV, a battery-operated TV out in the street here not too long ago, and I was just watching Laura, I think, mentioned that the Metro link is going to be open, and that indeed may be a very important link to get south from Santa Clarita, because right now the highways are out, San Fernando Road is out, and people have been going north, I know, to Palmdale to get some supplies up to 14, but no one's heading south or no one's heading east and no one's heading west in this town tonight. But it's one of those things where everybody is really pulling together. We all sustained major damage. The roads have buckled up here quite well. We have no water. We have no gas. We have no electricity. I had not had a phone all day. I've got 2 lines in this house, my private line, and then this line that KLOS installs for me to do my radio sports reports, and that line's been working. So I guess I should tell Bill Summers, the general manager at KLOS, that he's going to have a little bit of a bill because I've been making some phone calls here.
I don't think he'll mind. Yes, Todd, I spent 2 hours trying to get to your home, actually, and I could not get in, even with a media pass. The access into the area is completely blocked. The 14 is closed. The 5 is closed. The old road, which was the original means by which I got in, was closed, too. So that Metro link tomorrow will be very critical for folks to be able to get out.
Right. I know it sounds like the worst has come from the North San Fernando Valley, but I believe Santa Clarita took a big hit, too. And, the reason that it just hasn't been showing up on a lot of the news reports is nobody can get here because everybody is south of here, and there's no way to get to Santa Clarita right now. But I know I was, at around 5 o'clock, I wanted to go out and see. I heard they were giving out some water down at Avon's down here at the corner, but then that was out. And I went down to, and Laura, I know you know this fella, Dave's Meat Market, there on Lyons.
Right.
He had some water and some beer and some soda pops and a little bit of food and drinks and juice and whatnot, and he was passing them out, loading them up, and everybody was pretty much getting their tents pitched before dark because it is pitch black in Santa Clarita tonight.
Well, not too far from you, Todd, 44 homes in suburban Sylmar destroyed, and Laura was at one of those locations, a mobile home park, where 20 homes were destroyed. So I certainly agree with you that we haven't been able to get up and give folks the coverage visually as we'd like to, because we don't have access. We're not in any better position than they are to get up to where this story is at this point.
Yeah, and the local bridges, Paul, around here are buckling as well. I pulled out on Wiley Canyon, which is very close to our house, and you know, could not go a certain way because bridges over washes. And this is just on residential streets or you know, not major thoroughfares, but kind of intermediate thoroughfares that are closed down. You get on Lyons Boulevard, which is a major thoroughfare through Newhall and Valencia, and you can only go, maybe a half mile on that stretch there, and then it's closed off for various reasons. But a lot of roads buckle. It's just that the residential streets are buckled here.
And the house you're in, any serious structural damage to yours?
We've got, you know, I've got a brick wall down on one side, and you know, cracks on the outside, cracks on the inside. We're telling relatives that if they ever bought us anything that is breakable for a present or a gift, it's broken.
You'll need another one this year.
Well, we've literally, you know, when we were cleaning up, obviously with no electricity, you can't do any vacuuming today. But today was a lot of shovel work and just, I mean, you can only imagine shoveling up Waterford crystal and things like that. And I know that's probably a familiar story for a lot of people right now. Shoveling up the crystal, the china that you got from grandmother, keepsakes, mementos and everything else, but basically every piece of furniture in our house was turned over, it was down, all the pictures fell off the wall, all the books off. We went to we got the three boys, and Paul and I ran down the hallway to get them, and we couldn't even get into the kids' rooms because all the furniture had tipped over, and we couldn't get in, so we didn't know what was going on there, but hey, everybody's alive, and I think we're all very grateful for that tonight.
That's the important.
As difficult as it is, that is the true blessing, that everybody is okay in your home, and in many homes across the Southland, people did fare pretty
But you know
well.
something, I'll tell you, right now the eyes of the world are on Los Angeles, and let's show them what we're made of.
Okay, Tom, thank you very much. Good point.
We are going to turn now to Mark Brown. I cannot tell you for certain where he is, but he has...
on the Santa Monica Freeway near the Fairfax and La Cienega overpass.
Well, Barry, why don't you toss it to him
collapsed,
then?
and I think the governor was there and Caltrans. Going to take a year to rebuild it, if I remember what you said earlier, Mark.
I'm sorry, I couldn't quite hear your...
well, just go ahead from wherever you want to then. Just take it, please.
Okay, yes. Well, we are live here at Fairfax and the 10 freeway. This, of course, is an area that collapsed. Right now, what you're looking at behind me are some construction crews, or actually demolition crews would be the more accurate term. These folks have been brought in to tear this freeway down, a process they hope will take a week or less. Now, the governor was here not too long ago taking a close first-hand look at this 10 freeway. This is one of the 9 bridge structures that have collapsed in the Southland. Now, he was accompanied by a Caltrans engineer, but what the governor saw here really needs no technical explanation. Seeing is believing, believe me.
Well, it looks familiar. It looks like what we saw on a somewhat grander scale up there at Loma Prieta when the Cypress Freeway came down, but you don't have the double deck effect here. But you know, it's incredible when you think of the force of these quakes and what they can do. As was just pointed out, the Santa Monica Freeway I-10 was scheduled for a retrofit next month.
Looking at the maps, I find it hard to see that structures up north and structures down south were damaged, and a lot of them in between are perfectly okay. It just doesn't make sense the way the earth moves. And that's the engineering problem. We do everything we can to make them safe, but we can't beat Mother Nature.
Now, the estimated cost of fixing all those collapsed freeway bridges is about $100 million. Does the governor favor raising the sales tax to pay for it?
Well, I don't think anybody's very eager to do that. This state is still in recession. We're going to allow a half-cent of sales tax to expire, but instead gave the public the option to vote to extend it and earmark it for public safety, for police and fire protection. And if we can do this by rescheduling some projects, deferring some, that may be preferable.
Now, because this particular stretch of freeway had been scheduled for retrofit or retrenchment or restructuring here fairly recently, it was going to go actually next month in February. They already have the plans in place, so now they're just going to have to implement them. They are a little bit ahead of schedule than they might have been had there not been any sort of plan in place to retrofit this freeway. The process of building it, though, will take about a year, so you can bet that commuters are going to be in for a very tough time for for a fairly long time. They're gonna have to go through these surface streets to get where they're going to need to go. Shortly, though, these surface streets, they hope, will be available for use. Right now, you can't take Fairfax or La Cienega under the 10 freeway because they've got to tear this down. That's going to take about a week, and then the construction process, as I said, about a year. That's the latest from here on the west side of Los Angeles at the 10 freeway. Mark Brown, Channel 7 Eyewitness News.
Mark, did Caltrans talk about the 5 and the 14? Because by comparison, that is a much bigger problem. As you say, you can take side streets off of the Santa Monica freeway, but there's no side streets at the 5 and the 14, and that's a much more complicated engineering structure to work with.
It is a much more complicated structure, and the cost is commensurate with that. The Caltrans engineer estimated about $100 million to fix all the 9 bridges. He figures this particular stretch of the 10 freeway should only cost between $3 and $5 million of that. So when you're talking about 3 to 5% of this entire cost, you're looking at the bulk of that cost being taken up at the 5 and the 14. Now, the estimate of how long those will take, it's going to take about the same amount of time. And if the governor doesn't go for that half-cent sales tax, they're looking at perhaps taking money from budgeted Caltrans projects that were going to be taking place this year, that now they will simply delay and use that money to pay for this, if that will cover the expense, in fact.
All right, thank you.
Very
And it
difficult
lasted
situation.
30 to 40 seconds. 30 to 40
Hard to
seconds.
believe, isn't it?
Dallas Raines is going to join us now.